the number one biomarker I use to determine my daily health, and I guarantee it is not what you think it is. Welcome to the channel, everyone. My name is Aaron Wagley, high performance coach, former corporate lawyer, realigning high performers with their high performance. In this video today, we are going to go through the number one biomarker I am currently using to determine my daily health. Like I said, it's not what you think it is. It's not what is implied by this photo of Goggins here on the right. Let's get straight into it. So when we talk about biomarkers, health markers, there are 1,000,001 different ones we can use to try and determine our health and performance. These really can be split into three different categories. So to start off with, we have strict numerical biomarkers such as testosterone levels, IGF-1 levels, body fat percentage, etc. These, this is strict data. This is a number that we can look at and clearly track and assess where we are. The problem with this is people stray into neuroticism. If you actually care about, the number when you look at your testosterone, if you actually care in and of itself about your testosterone as it pertains to nanograms per deciliter, then you've strayed into neuroticism, because the point of these numerical biomarkers is for us to be able to assess and track what's going on in the inside. It's not the actual goal, it's a means towards the goal. So when we're looking at maxing out our testosterone, getting our testosterone levels as high as possible, as many nanograms per deciliters as possible, we're doing that so we can feel as vital as possible, so we have, mental acuity, mental resilience, sky high libido, optimal muscle mass. Whatever the goal is, that's the actual goal. It's not to just be able to say, I've got, 1,000 nanograms per deciliters of testosterone. Same goes with, anything from heart rate variability to body fat percentage. Like, if you actually care that you have, that you're 7% body fat, like, you don't actually care about that. You care about the fact that you're lean, you feel light, you feel really good. So these strict numerical biomarkers, they're really useful to track and assess, but that's exactly what they are. They're tools. They're not the goal in and of themselves. Then we have more practical measures like grip strength tests, reaction speed tests, even something like morning wood, which was what was implied at the start of the video by the title. For people that don't know, morning wood refers to you waking up erect in the morning. It is a really good health marker. You should be waking up with morning wood. If you don't, then it is a sign that your testosterone is not firing in the way that it should, and that there are deeper problems at play. And then we've got more subjective and symptomatic, less measurable markers. These really all pertain to how we feel. So this can be anything from our presence of mind to how grateful we feel, our perceived level of happiness, and so on. And people really undervalue these because, like I said, this is really the goal at the end of the day, to feel strong, to feel vital, to feel as though we're sharp and firing on all cylinders so that we can perform the way that we need to in our job, in our life in general. Like I said, the downside of these more subjective markers is that sometimes we can lie to ourselves. Sometimes we feel better than we actually are. Sometimes we feel worse. Oftentimes it's that we feel worse than we actually are. Like, we can get into this trap of thinking, oh, I haven't done this today, so like I'm not as strong. I didn't sleep as much, so I'm not as sharp. When, if we went through all the practical tests and we actually looked at our biomarkers, we might be firing on all cylinders, but we've kind of got in our head about it. So the point is, we can use any number of any of these to determine our health and performance. And we should use, we should have kind of go-tos in each category. We should have certain biomarkers that we're looking to track at different times, depending upon our goals. We should have practical measures in our bank that we can refer to each day to see how we're doing. And we should be taking stock on a more subjective, emotional level of how we feel, because that's obviously, that's what matters at the end of the day. So it's easy to get caught up in looking at one singular marker to give us the verdict on our health. We can get so obsessed with one of these that we end up pursuing its improvement, irrespective of how we actually feel day to day. So lately, I've come across a marker, let's say, that reliably tells me how well I'm doing each day. It's easy to measure, completely free. I suppose it falls in between a practical measure like a grip strength test or a reaction speed test and a subjective symptomatic test. So it's quite good in that regard, kind of covers two bases. And this is really something that every man should be looking at as a key marker for how healthy, fit, and successful he is. Like I said, it's not testosterone, free testosterone, or even DHT. They are, of course, really important in assessing where our vitality, where our health and performance is at with all of our clients, right from the very start of any coaching program that we put them under. We test testosterone, we test free testosterone, test DHT if we think that's applicable. These are really important, but like I said, these aren't the goal in and of themselves. It's not like you can just test them every day. This is something you can test every day. So let's have a look at what exactly it is. It's decisiveness. What is decisiveness? Decisiveness is your ability to make decisions, ideally the right ones. And why is decisiveness so important? And how is it an effective health marker, right? It's probably not what you were thinking. Thinking practical measures. It could be anything from a vertical jump test to, seeing how many press-ups you can do in the morning. Decisiveness, it can seem quite not a woo-woo concept as such, but quite hard to pin down. But I actually think it's a really practical way of measuring your health and performance each day. I found my level of decisiveness directly correlates to the quality of my day. It also reflects how dialed in I am on my standard protocols, everything from diet, sleep, training, everything. Basically, your decisiveness is so tied to your health and performance that it gives you a really good picture of how dialed in you are on your protocols, how you are feeling. So it captures many attributes and abilities. Number 1, clarity of mind and mental acuity. This is because you have to have clear process of thought in order to make decisions. You need to be able to think clearly, to be sharp, to be on the ball cognitively. Gumption, drive, agency. You need to be in an active state of being to make decisions. You need to be proactive. To decide is to do something. It is an action, or there should be an action off the back of that decision. Really, a decision is only a decision if you act on it. If you just make a decision in your mind, then you're still in the pondering phase. It's only when you then act on that decision in your mind that it actually becomes a decision. So that really pertains to motivation. Look, a healthy person is a motivated person. If you don't feel motivated, then there is a reason why you don't feel motivated. Don't get caught in the discipline trap of, I'm not motivated, I'm disciplined. Okay, yeah, we all have unmotivated days, demotivated days, but if you're healthy, if everything's working under the hood, you should be motivated. Problem solving, resilience, composure. In order to make decisions, you need to be able to effectively problem solve. You need to be able to resist getting stressed and overwhelmed by what at first appear to be insurmountable problems. So this is something that, we really see in people whose testosterone, whose DHT especially, is not as high as it should be. When we're faced with these complex problems and we first look at them, we can't see the solution in that problem. If, things like our DHT and testosterone is not firing the way it should be, it's easy for us to become overwhelmed in those scenarios and to go into that fight or flight, that curl up into that fetal position, figuratively speaking, and to say, I don't know how to do this. This is too much. I can't solve this problem. So if you're faced with complex problems like that and you're able to work through them and make decisions in that process of working through them, then that's a really good sign that your testosterone is strong, your DHT is strong. You're in a place where you are able to deal with those things. You're resilient, you're composed, you're cognitively firing as well to be able to solve those problems. Risk-taking, commitment, and the strength to walk away. Deciding for one thing is deciding against the other. So every decision you take carries a degree of risk because you have the potential of missing out on something. You need to be able to firm the possibility that the decision may be the wrong one to make and you decide it anyway. Everything's a cost-benefit analysis. Nobody can predict the future. You've got to be able to take that risk, be able to commit to something. That takes a certain amount of impetus. And if you don't have, if you're not virile enough, if you don't have enough real about you that day, then you will find yourself hesitating and you go to make that decision and then you don't, and then you do and then you don't, rather than just looking at it and going, okay, I don't know how this is going to pan out, but this is what my gut says. Well, I'm working through it logically. This is what we should do, and we'll see how it plays out. That takes a certain amount of impetus, which requires a certain level of vitality. And then emotional stability and alignment. You can just make decisions willy-nilly, like arbitrarily. You can just throw darts at the board, but you want to make decisions that are right for you. So in order to in order to make decisions that are right for you and for your greater purpose, for your greater success, you need to be in touch and conscious of your emotions, your intentions, your greater purpose. So really, if you find yourself in an indecisive state, like I said, it could be something very practical, but it can also point to kind of more existential issues. Like, do you know what your goals are, like over the next 5 years, 10 years? Where are your intentions? Are your actions in alignment with your intentions? So it really gives us this holistic picture of our health on a physical, cognitive, and even emotional level too. So by holding decisiveness as this North Star, like I said, you're easily able to aggregate your physical, mental, and emotional condition each day. If you haven't slept well or eaten well, then your mental acuity may be impacted. If your mental acuity is impacted, I guarantee you it's going to be more difficult to make decisions. Any kind of brain fog makes thoughtful, intentional decision making damn nigh impossible. Like I referenced just a moment ago, you basically just have to throw darts at the board blind because you can't think through problems properly. You just kind of have to guess what the right decision is to make. If you're not mentally locked in, then you have less gumption. You're less motivated. You're more doubtful. When this is the case, you are less driven to make decisions. You're more overwhelmed by the complex ones, and you don't have the balls to commit and take risks in making them. And then as well, if something is spiritually or emotionally out of alignment, then you are flummoxed and you're not sure of yourself and you don't know what you want on the existential level, or even if it's not existential, you don't know what you want on the, on the greater scale. And when you're out of touch with that, how do you know what decisions to make in the micro that will serve you in the macro? A competent, successful, high-performing man is able to make decisions thoughtfully, intentionally, and ruthlessly in order to serve his greater mission and purpose. If you are not able to do so, then something is wrong. The something may be emotional and existential, but oftentimes it can be something as physical and procedural as a mineral deficiency, too much endotoxin, or a poor night's sleep. I definitely noticed this for myself. If I stay up late, if I eat junk food right before I go to bed, the next morning I wake up with such brain fog. I'm just in this limbo mode. I have no impetus to go anywhere, and I'm not even thinking straight to be able to think about where I would want to go, what I want to do. And so many people are falling into that trap, and they think they're tired. They think they're just tired, or they think, they're just having a demotivated day, when it could be what you ate the night before. It could be that you haven't slept well. It could be something more long-term, like a mineral deficiency. There are many markers and parameters that we should measure and track in order to ensure health, vitality, and real as men. But if you want a quick and easy snapshot right this moment, ask yourself, can you make a fucking decision? Because like I said at the start of this video, you can track your testosterone, DHT, you can look at cortisol, you can look at your lipids. All of these are going to give you insights. All of these are things that you should track and look to improve. But it's because in improving those, you will see an uptick in mental acuity. You'll see an uptick in your ability to solve problems, your resilience, your ability to not get overwhelmed, to be able to deal with stress. And all of these things can be measured as to how well you're doing with those on a daily basis by asking yourself the simple question, how well am I making decisions each day? So how can we track this day to day? I've actually had periods where I've tracked how many significant decisions I've made that day. And it can be like as simple as going to the coffee shop and deciding which coffee you're having. It can be, as simple as saying, do I choose this software over that? They're like, don't think it has to be like monumental decisions like, how am I going to break up with my girlfriend today? No, it can be something really simple. And I think you'll benefit a lot of people if they just tracked that over a week. Like how many decisions, significant decisions, am I making today versus yesterday? And what are the differences in terms of what I ate, how I slept? Try and tie the physical to the practical, and you'll be surprised at what tendencies you might find. So I hope you found some value in that. I really would recommend that people start thinking about how decisive they are being. It really is important, especially as a high-performing man. You've got to be making decisions. You've got to be making the right ones. And you'll be surprised, like I said, at how much your physical habits, your physical health is tied to your ability to make those decisions. Like I said, I hope you found this helpful. If you did, make sure to give this video a thumbs up, drop a comment below, share it around on social media, share it with somebody that you think will find it helpful as well, and hit that subscribe button. And I will see you back here next week for another video.